Welcome to my 10-minute talk about Harry Wright, the British man who helped birth professional baseball. You may be thinking that this is a bit of a niche topic, but actually it opens a window into a fascinating part of local history which has hitherto been largely unexplored. I'm talking about British baseball. Because when we think of popular sporting entertainment in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, we think of cricket, rugby, football, racing, that sort of thing. We don't think about baseball. And why would we? It's just an American sport, right? Well, there was actually a massive interest in baseball in Britain at the time, with teams across the UK and domestic competitions. This culminated in a 1938 Amateur World Series win by the British over the US, and you can find out more about that in a video I made on my YouTube channel. So this is a rather unexplored part of local history, and I encourage anyone who's interested in local sporting or social history to start looking in their local archives, because unfortunately this is a topic which doesn't get a lot of attention. And outside of the work of a few very committed and passionate amateurs, there really isn't a lot of publicly available information, which unfortunately leaves our narrative rather potted and incomplete. But with all that out of the way, it's time to start talking about Harry. Harry was born in Sheffield in Yorkshire in 1835. His family later emigrated to New York, and there, alongside his father, he played cricket at a local cricket club in Manhattan. Cricket was extremely popular in the United States well into the late 19th century. In fact, in 1859, the English cricket team made their first ever overseas tour and played America. Harry played against them. At some point, he started playing baseball, and in 1866 joined the Cincinnati Red Stockings, the first professional American baseball team. Not just that, he was both a player and a manager, helping with the recruitment of new players and the day-to-day management of the club. In 1870, he became the manager of the Boston Red Stockings. So it can be said that Harry was central to the development of the professional game in America. In 1874, partially organised by Harry, the Boston Red Stockings and Philadelphia Athletics embarked on a world tour, although really they were just going to the UK and Ireland. Harry was eager to return to his native country and help introduce the game to them. Or at least, that's how a lot of American historians present it. As we know, baseball descended from games like rounders, and we can find written references to baseball in the UK from as far back as the 18th century, such as this 1744 book, A Little Pretty Pocket Book. So it's likely that baseball was already being played in the UK by the time of this tour. As I mentioned earlier, with the lack of research available, there's very little known about this early period from the British point of view. Even established websites on baseball history differ on the precise details. One source, for example, says that the first baseball game on British soil took place on February 27, 1874, as an exhibition match hosted by the Marylebone Cricket Club. But considering what we already know, I'm doubtful of this. The tour began properly in July that year, with the aforementioned game being something of a warm-up to test the waters. They played matches at Liverpool, Manchester, London, Sheffield and Dublin. Though plans were apparently made to tour Scotland, these never materialised. The tour is generally regarded by historians as a failure, with the organisers operating at a loss and playing to disappointingly small crowds, which has been attributed to the lack of promotion. This has been viewed, largely in American historiography, as proof that baseball never took off in Britain. However, I think that this is a little unfair. 5,000 spectators were said to have watched a game at Lord's Cricket Ground, which is quite a large number of people for the time. Similarly, 2,000 were said to have watched a match at Richmond Cricket Ground in Middlesex. So yes, whilst there weren't tens of thousands of spectators, enough people were at least curious enough to attend matches in quite significant numbers for the time. Similarly, the idea that baseball failed to take off in the UK is simply not true. In 1888 and 9, another world tour was organised, playing to much bigger crowds and kicking off a baseball mania which would see over 90 teams formed in England alone, with others in Scotland and Wales. Again, further research is needed to establish a fuller idea of the popularity of the game in Scotland, Wales and Ireland. But back to Harry. He would continue working as a manager for various teams until his death in 1895. He is currently the only member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame to have been born in the United Kingdom, and whilst he is fairly well known in the United States, I would hazard that most British people probably haven't heard of him or why he is so significant in terms of the development of baseball in the UK and the US. So, where next? Well, I've only given a very brief bird's eye view of the topic, but hopefully this has been interesting to you and given you some insight into a largely forgotten area of 19th and 20th century social history. If you would like to find out more, I have covered the topic in more detail on the aforementioned video on my YouTube channel, and you can also find out more via the sources used for research. I would also suggest visiting your local archive or online newspaper archive to see what can be discovered about baseball in your local area. Thank you for listening.